Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, September 14th, 2018. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. It's a very busy news day, and the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions. And, of course, in hour number 3 today, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us with her unique perspective on the world. So let's get right on into it. Obviously, the big news today is Hurricane Florence, which made landfall as a Category 1 storm. This comes under the category of could have been a lot worse than it really is, which is what we went through with Hurricanes Lane and Olivia, where the media was saying, oh, it's going to be horrible, horrible, and it was rough, but could have been a lot worse here. Same thing going on there in the Carolinas. Somebody sent me this clip from CNN, where the reporter on the scene is like, you know, leaning over on his and embraced to fight the horrible wind, and in the background, 2 people just stroll by casually. So there's no question the media is trying to amp this up to build the drama of what is really, if you think about it, already a serious situation. Apparently, 600,000 people are currently without power. Repair crews are coming in from other electric companies around the country. As soon as the winds abate, they're going to start plugging that all back in. There is a little concern over the Brunswick nuclear plant on the Cape Fear River. Now, Cat 1 is not going to blow the reactors into collapse, but flooding can be an issue. Fortunately, after Fukushima, they built a seawall designed to withstand 22 feet of flooding. And right now they're estimating the storm surge is only going to be 10 feet high, so it looks like that was another situation that is not going to happen. So a little bit of good news there. And but it will be probably a few days before electricity is restored to much of the area. It's a bad storm. There's no question about it. I don't mean to trivialize it, but again, could have been a lot worse than it really was. Up in Massachusetts, we're getting more information about those multiple gas explosions, and they still don't know exactly how many homes have been burned. The estimates are running between 60 and 100 homes on fire. They're ordering evacuations. They're literally telling people, leave your home right now. Do not turn any electrical items on or off. And obviously, if your electricity is off, you know, don't light a candle. But there's been one death so far. There was a teenager who was killed when the chimney on a burning house collapsed and fell across his car in the driveway. But massive smoke all over the area, literally unable to see the sky there. And my speculation yesterday turned out to be the correct one. The gas company that serves these three cities, which is Andover, North Andover, and Lawrence, overpressurized the lines, highly overpressurized the lines, and it may have been related to attempts to upgrade the infrastructure. And somebody somewhere turned the wrong valve and just shot the pressure right through the roof, fractured all these gas links inside these homes, and nobody knows when this is going to end. They're trying to depressurize the mains right now, but it's a long, involved process. It's not as simple as like venting it to the sky, which would be yet another disaster. So a lot of people have been injured. They've been taken to the Lawrence General Hospital. No details on their injuries, whether it's from collapsing buildings or burns or inhalation. But it really is nasty. Interestingly enough, a story coming out of Heavy.com, it's already been announced that the fires in Massachusetts are not related to terrorism, and they put out the announcement because a lot of people are saying, okay, if the FBI is there, what's going on here? And one would wonder why the FBI would be there, because this is a state matter. It's not a crime that involves crossing state borders, but they put out that statement that this is not connected with terrorism. Frankly, I'm waiting for them to blame Russian hackers and Vladimir Putin for this, because absent something like that, the gas company that is responsible for all this, they are going to get sued out of existence for this one. Because we're talking about 100 homes plus the belongings inside, plus the injuries, pain, and suffering. This was a major, major mistake. And why there wasn't an alarm or why there wasn't additional safety equipment. Now, obviously, when a line overpressurizes, you can't just vent to the outside air because you create another fire hazard situation. But this one is really ugly, and somebody somewhere inside that gas company really messed up. They really did mess up. I did see one article where they were attempting to shift the blame onto the fact that the actual gas main pipes are very, very old, and say it was really all the fault of decaying infrastructure. But I've had it from multiple sources that yes, indeed, the lines were overpressurized and it ruptured the gas delivery hoses to the appliances in those homes. And all it needed after that was some kind of an ignition source, like a pilot light or anything sparking electrical, and off she went. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Turning over to Syria, things are very tense over there. We're still waiting to see if there's going to be a starting time for outright war here. But people are beginning to pick up on what's going on and the extreme absurdity of this situation. Now, out here in Hawaii, our Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard basically is pointing out the glaring hypocrisy of the White House honoring those killed by al-Qaeda during 9/11, while the U.S. is simultaneously supporting al-Qaeda in Idlib, which is a valid comment to make if you accept the official story that al-Qaeda did 9/11. But for most Americans, they're wondering what the heck is going on. And even Tucker Carlson on his show on Fox is saying, how is it that we've gone from fighting al-Qaeda to protecting them? And so Fox News is actually admitting the U.S. is getting ready to bomb Syria to protect al-Qaeda and also the remnants of ISIS. So there's something really weird about that, and I think most Americans are smart enough to pick up on it. The U.S. is still screaming chemical warfare in Syria. There was an article that came out saying UN inspectors had found yet more evidence that Assad was gassing his people some years ago, and they're just laying it on with a trowel here. Russia continues to claim they have specific intelligence that al-Qaeda affiliates working with the White Helmets are preparing to stage a chlorine gas attack that will be blamed on Assad and used to justify an escalation in Syria. So we need to look at that issue of provenance, because we have gotten to this situation where the U.S. government, and for that matter Great Britain, will just make an announcement. Okay, Saddam has nukes, we're off to war. Assad has gas, we're off to war. The Russians poisoned Sergei Skripal, we're off to war. And they're taking the attitude of, we don't have to prove it to you. If you're loyal citizens, you will listen to us and you will believe as we tell you to believe. Which is a lot of nonsense. After being lied to as much as we, the American people, have been lied to, we should demand proof beyond a reasonable doubt of every single assertion made by the government, the state-controlled schools, and the corporate media. We should take nothing on faith from any of these known propaganda institutions here. Now, Russia is warning the United States that if U.S. forces do get in the way as they go into Idlib, they may well be fired on. Now, the United States is sending additional U.S. forces into Idlib. They had a few dozen there before. Now they've got several thousand. And maybe they're hoping that having that many Americans there will act as a deterrent to Russia and Syria. They won't dare to attack because they don't want to hit those American forces, which would then be used as a trigger for U.S. action. But Russia is not backing off its warning and reasserts it is acting within international law at the invitation of the Syrian government. The U.S. is clearly in the wrong here. So the rhetoric is continuing, and it does feel like at some point there's going to be a flashpoint. My speculation, my expectation, if you will, is that once Hurricane Florence is off the news cycle, then we're going to get all this nonsense about another Assad chemical attack on poor, innocent civilians, women and children, and we'll be off to war. And again, it makes absolutely no sense. Assad, first of all, doesn't need to use chemical weapons. He's winning the war. And he surrendered all of his chemical weapons under international supervision. He's got nothing to gain by using chemical weapons and everything to lose. Who gains if there's a chemical weapons attack blamed on Assad? Obviously, the United States. So we're seeing another little wrinkle here because there was a United Nations Security Council meeting on Syria, and it was broadcast by Sputnik News, and basically France, the United States, and Great Britain were on public display, just throwing their lies out there. But there is one aspect we need to pay attention to. Basically, if Syria and Russia continue their operation against the U.S.-backed terrorists in Syria, the U.S. will attack Syria. More importantly, the U.S. will unleash their Ukrainians against the Donbass Republic and try and stick Russia with a two-front war. So the implication is that if Syria and Russia back off and let the U.S.-backed terrorists have Idlib, then nothing is going to happen in Ukraine, at least for the immediate future. But if Russia and Syria move on into Idlib to end the war, that the U.S. is going to kick off the situation in Ukraine against the eastern Ukrainian republics. Here a war, there a war, everywhere a war. Now here's an interesting little story that came out of Pravda. The United States Air Force claims they will be using the F-35B Lightning II against Russia's Sukhoi 57 and the S-400 missile systems in Syria. Now that is going to be interesting to see, given that the F-35 on the whole is not really ready for combat. It's still on early versions of the software. A lot of the systems still don't work correctly. They're getting ready to send it into combat. Now, its stealth capability, if it's really as stealthy as build, may evade the S-400. But if a Sukhoi 57 gets eyes onto an F-35, it's going to be toast because the F-35 is a terrible dogfighter. It's already been tested against 1970s vintage fighters like the F-15, and it is clearly inferior. And they're admitting the Air Force has never used this aircraft in actual combat before. This could turn out to be a huge, huge embarrassment. Meanwhile, the Pentagon is questioning the presence of the Russian warships off the Syrian coast. Why do you have warships off the Syrian coast? Syria asked us to. What are American warships doing off the Syrian coast? You weren't invited to this party. Once again, the French foreign minister is warning the Syrian government against the use of chemical weapons, blah, 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 blah. So they're still pounding that issue. They're trying to keep it alive, trying to keep the propaganda going. But they're telegraphing what they're going to do. There's going to be a false flag, and the war will really crank up. We are getting more reports that the Syrian rebels are in fact preventing refugees from leaving Idlib. They want civilian casualties for propaganda purposes. They want lots of dead bodies where they can say, oh, look what those evil Russians and Syrians did. Russia, on the other hand, is trying to create humanitarian corridors in Idlib in order to get the civilians out of there and prevent the civilian casualties. And the Russian foreign minister, Lavrov, is saying Russia will do everything not to hurt the civilian population. And Lavrov, in the same time, was pulling no punches on the way the Western coalition helped liberate cities. In particular, he touched upon Iraq's Mosul and Syria's Raqqa, which have been major strongholds of ISIS. And these cities were simply flattened, and the corpses were lying under the rubble for months. So it is hypocritical for the United States to claim their opposition against Syria and Russia going into Idlib is based on humanitarian grounds. When you look at how the U.S. has just ignored the problem of civilian casualties in these other areas. Down in Yemen, the Saudi attack on the strategic port city of Hodeidah is continuing. And displaced families are being forced to flee while the Saudi-led coalition basically pounds the port city. And there is an acute lack of basic needs, including food, clothing, and water. It is a humanitarian disaster. But you're not going to hear the United States complain about that humanitarian disaster because, you know, we're the good guys and we're the exceptional nation. And our friends, the Saudis, you know, they can't be seen as doing anything wrong. It's only the Russians in Syria that we chastise for humanitarian casualties. Everybody's gearing up for a war. Everybody knows a big war is going. The European Union is increasing the size of their military by 7 times. Everybody's arming up. The defense contractors are giggling insanely at the money that they're making. And the populations of all those European Union nations are being taxed even more to pay for it all. Not to mention all the taxes being spent to prop up all those refugees that have crowded into the country here. Now, as you know, following the situation with Crimea, various sanctions and other impediments were placed on Russia, which included the Ukrainian imports to Russia, many of which went to Russia's defense industry. Well, Russia has basically completed the replacement of all Ukraine-produced products. They're now self-sufficient internally, and they can now run their military without having to go outside. And that is a really good thing. And it's something to consider about the United States preparations for war, because the reality here is that the United States is still heavily dependent on foreign imported components for our military. And there are 2 issues you need to keep in mind. The first is the sea lanes of communication through which those imported components are being shipped. If those are compromised, those supplies are cut off. The second issue, of course, is that some of these countries currently selling us these components might decide to stop in the event of a war, depending upon alignments. So the U.S. military is actually vulnerable in that particular area. Over in Great Britain, they're still pounding on this whole Skripal nonsense. And there is this chemical weapons expert, Dr. Chris Busby. He's an outspoken critic of the British government's handling of the Skripal poisoning. And his home was raided by police. And afterwards, police officers complained of feeling unwell. They sent out the hazmat team. Frankly, it looks like a PR hoax to discredit this guy and make it look like he's part of a terrorist cell or he's dangerous. So don't listen to his criticism of the way the British are handling the Skripal case here. Now, as you know, the U.S. is threatening even more crippling sanctions on Russia over the Skripal case. Now they're offering a carrot. The United States is saying that Russia will avoid this second, more punishing round of sanctions if it allows chemical weapons inspections. And Russia may go along with that. The issue here, though, should be why the U.S. does not allow chemical weapons inspections. Now, several years ago, all these countries got together and signed a treaty to get rid of their chemical weapons, and most of the countries have complied. The U.S. has not. They still have all their stockpiles. So once again, it's hypocrisy. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials here. We got a caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the telephones now. And Steve in West Virginia. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I just want to kind of talk about what your callers, Mark and Dustin, mentioned yesterday, and especially Mark, what he said that, I was a former U.S. Marine during the first Gulf War, and I can remember being out in a place called Camp Wilson in 29 Palms, California,
Yes.
and having to crawl around in the sand and dirt and not take a shower for a whole week. And I'm 51 years old now, and if Trump ever called back people or tried to make people come back, there is no way in hell that I would go back. You could put the plastic cups on me and put me in jail, and I would not go back to fight the Syrians or the Russians or any of those people. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way as I do. We're just not going to do it. And if there's just no way they could have a draft, you could potentially be facing a situation where you have the beginnings of civil war here, and at the same time having to enact a draft to go fight in Syria. It just doesn't make sense. We don't have the people. I mean, they couldn't mobilize the people. You watch these videos with the Russians and Chinese having this war games. They've got 36,000 tanks. Well, I mean, we're used to facing Syria, or we're used to facing Iraq, and they're not organized armies. I mean, the Russians, they have a super air force. There is no way, Mike, we are going to fight these people and win. There is no way. And I just can't even believe that some people keep bringing this up. And the other thing I just want to say, and then I'll get off the line, you have another caller by the name of George that was talking to you yesterday.
Yes.
About an autistic son that could be indoctrinated into the draft. What I would say to him is, George, just don't comply. Don't comply with them. I mean, peacefully, don't comply. Don't do anything. Don't send your kid there. The people that resist this draft, if they ever do it in the future, are going to be the heroes of the future. Don't comply and resist. Don't do what they say. It'd be better to go to jail than be exposed to DU and killed by the Russians for a few thousand people. It's not worth it. Just don't comply with them. And that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that honest, from the heart opinion there. And I'm glad that you survived your experience in the military more or less in one piece here. But I hear the same thing from a lot of people I talk to around here. Obviously, we have a very high per capita presence of military, and I chit-chat with them every once in a while. They're not enthusiastic about the wars. They don't believe in the wars, and that is a large component that is missing. I mean, back when the Vietnam draft was happening, most Americans had been convinced the war in Vietnam was really necessary, that it was important to the United States, that it was something the U.S. had no choice but to be in. Today, of course, it's very different. A majority of Americans understand these are wars of conquest that are being fought. They bring nothing of any real benefit to the American people and the American nation. It's all about oil companies and bankers getting richer than they already are. And people just do not feel that they want to support such a war. And this goes all the way back to Sun Tzu and the Art of War. If the army doesn't believe in the moral rightness of the war, if the people, the civilians, don't believe in the moral rightness of the war, you are not going to win. All right, well, we're going to take another phone call. Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, I'm going to start with you now, but I'm probably going to have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Mike, did you see, the spokesman for the Russian, was it foreign, Maria Zakharova?
Yeah.
That's her name, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Did you see what she come out and said? She's like, you're heading into the abyss. Like, she's warning us. They're warning us. Like,
yes.
Mike, I mean, my God, they are warning us what we're doing. And then you have that report that came out where the Marines are arming and training the rebels. There is no moderate rebels. Bin Laden was a moderate rebel. There is none, And then there's that other picture, the French truck in the background. Did you see that?
That one I don't think I caught.
Yeah, there's a French. So the French are there, too, because the Frenchies are involved, and so is the British. This is a cabal, Mike. France, Britain, United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. They're all there. France and Britain might be more clandestine, but they're there. That truck proves it.
Yes.
But
well, I mean, look at the belligerent statements that we're getting out of the French foreign minister about, don't you dare use chemical weapons. I mean, France has already said they will attack Syria if there are chemical weapons used. And so, yeah, they're involved, and basically everybody's piling on, and they're hoping to carve up the spoils of post-war, post-Assad Syria. And I think the reason that they're all trying to get this thing going again is because as things are right now, if Russia and Syria clean out Idlib, it's going to be Russian companies coming on in and making the money rebuilding Syria. It's going to be Russian and Chinese BRICS banks loaning the money to Syria to rebuild. And the U.S. and France and Britain are just going to be cut out of all that money making that follows a war. Anyway, listen, stay on the line, Dustin. We got to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com, or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey, and Maria Zakharova is right. We're at the edge of the abyss here, because if we, meaning the U.S. government, I got to stop using we. If the U.S. government gets into a war with Russia, and probably China's going to come in on Russia's side, first of all, everybody loses in a war of that scale. The biggest problem is going to be how to keep it from going nuclear. And not too long ago, Paul Craig Roberts came out with a revelation. There are people in Washington, D.C. that are already talking about using nuclear weapons against Russia. And they're not joking. They're saying, let's just get it over with. And so, of course, they've all got their bunkers. They've got the Greenbrier to hide out in. They got Mount Weather. They've got all these other places all set aside where they can ride out a nuclear war. And so in their point of view, they think it could actually be winnable. But nobody wins in a nuclear war. And we've had a lot of people call in the show and say, yeah, they could go down to their bunkers. All the rich people who've got their private bunkers, they could go down there. When their food and water runs out, they come on up and open the hatch, and instead of a green, natural, wonderful, human-free planet to live in, it's all radioactive desolation, and everything is dead. It could easily go that way. That much radiation in the atmosphere, you could collapse the food chain. The entire ecological system could come crashing down.
Well, John McCain's dead already, so we wouldn't know if he tastes like chicken.
oh, gross, tacky.
Mike, what's the flight time like with those ultralight vehicles that they got now for the hyper? Like, I wonder what the flight time would be for like a Sarmat. It was like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, maybe. What's the flight time?
Well, it depends on where it's launched from. I would say if they're launching from within continental Russia aimed at the continental U.S., you're probably looking on the order of something under half an hour. If they're doing sub-launched, if they can get up to the edge of our coast with that new, the Bure, I think is their latest ballistic missile submarine. Then you're looking at a flight time of about 5 minutes.
And Mike, Russia and China, these drills are saying we got each other's backs. That's what this drill is saying. That's why the Russians had the Chinese involved.
Yes.
In this drill.
They were sending a message.
Mike, yeah, exactly. And Mike, the button's been pushed in Syria already because Nikki Haley even said, we already know he gave the order to use a chemical weapon. She said that. So it's already been approved by the West.
I know it has. I think they're waiting for Hurricane Florence to clear the media cycle. They don't want any distractions, and then they're going to come out with whatever videos that the White Helmets and Al Qaeda put together, showing all these dead bodies.
And Mike, the previous caller, he said there's no way Let me tell you, dude, this will go nuclear because we don't have the manpower. And NATO is nothing, but we don't have the manpower, even with NATO. Look at all the tanks they had, right? It's just we don't have the manpower. It would go tactical nuke or full ICBM style, because it's just the West is we said this before, is a declining empire. We don't want to give up power, and people who don't want to give up power go psycho.
Yes,
and that's a fact.
Yep,
and
that's a good description.
Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. And that's a good analogy. People who are wealthy and powerful, when they feel like they're losing that wealth and power, they go completely psycho. Look at Hillary Clinton when she lost the 2016 elections. Reportedly, she literally physically assaulted her campaign manager, John Podesta, and had to be restrained by other staffers. And yeah, we could be seeing that here in the United States. The dollar is in decline. The economy is fragile. The government has lost the trust of the American people. And the U.S. military is certainly capable of messing up relatively weak countries like Iraq or Libya. But going up against a military peer is an entirely different matter. And if we do get into a full-on war with Russia and China, sooner or later, one side or the other will resort to the nuclear arsenal. And it is very alarming. Again, as I said, Paul Craig Roberts is saying there are people in Washington, D.C. who are seriously suggesting just using the nuclear arsenal against Russia. They are collectively insane. Ron Paul had an article out there saying that our modern day empire requires a lot of force and lying to the people. And he writes in this article, the U.S. effort to preserve its global dominance is a costly endeavor based on threats and keeping the American people in the dark about what is going on. And this was Ron Paul in an interview with Russia Today. And he's absolutely right. Where it's falling apart, of course, is that because of the independent media, the American people are not in the dark. The American people are seeing the light. And that's why all of a sudden you've got these corporate social media platforms are trying to delist everybody or deplatform everybody. They're coming after the independent media. They want the American people to go back to believing in the lies. And it's not going to happen. Do you think if the independent media just vanished today, that the American people by Monday would be back to totally trusting the corporate media and the government? Of course not. Trust arrives on foot, but it departs on horseback. Right now, the U.S. government's credibility, the corporate media credibility, is so bad, even if they started telling nothing but the truth today, it would be decades before they regained the trust of the American population. Anyway, getting back to Ron Paul, he's saying what the United States is trying to do is maintain a modern-day empire. And it does take a lot of lying to the American people to get them to go along with it. Now, getting on back to this issue of chemical inspections for Russia and would be nice for the United States here, attention is now coming back to this Richard Lugar Center for Public Health Research in Russian Georgia. It's located near Tbilisi. And it has long been accused of being a U.S.-controlled biological warfare laboratory that has even used human beings for conducting some of their experiments. Now, apparently, Russian specialists have acquired a bunch of documents from this library. They're going through them, and they're preparing to release a public report on just what the U.S. has been doing there. All right, turning to the domestic politics here. Paul Manafort is cooperating with the special counsel as part of a plea bargain, but not on any matters involving the Trump campaign. And Trump himself tweeted on out, this has got nothing to do with the 2016 campaign. It's got nothing to do with the allegations of collusion with the Russians. This is Robert Mueller trying to maintain a sense of legitimacy. But the hard, cold reality is that after all these months and all this money, Mueller has found zero evidence of Russian collusion, zero evidence that Russia interfered with our elections. You want to know who interfered with our elections? Google did, Facebook did, Twitter did, YouTube did. If you want to talk about collusion, let's talk about the Hillary campaign and Fusion GPS colluding with Russians, trying to dig up dirt for this dodgy dossier that Christopher Steele put together. That's collusion right there. Now, the Democrats are in a panic over the possibility or probability that Brett Kavanaugh will be confirmed to the Supreme Court, and they've managed to dig up a scandal where supposedly Dianne Feinstein claims to have a letter from a woman who went to high school with Brett Kavanaugh claiming he tried to rape her. And I mean, after all these years, again, it's one of these things. Why didn't the girl go public back when it happened? Brett Kavanaugh wasn't a political power back then. Why wasn't it reporting? So Feinstein is wagging that around and telling Republicans, rather, you can't possibly vote for this man. He's a rapist. Well, that's not proven. It's an allegation, and an allegation is not proof. Now, if he really did do something like that, he should be charged. And he went to high school in Maryland where there is no statute of limitations on rape. but he's never been charged. This just appeared out of nowhere. It's just more of this Stormy Daniels and Playboy Centerfold kind of nonsense. And all it does is illustrate, first of all, how desperate the Democrats are, and two, what they're willing to go to, the lengths they're willing to go to, how utterly dishonest at its core the Democratic Party has become. Now, the other day, as Hurricane Florence was bearing down on the Carolinas, Senator Jeff Merkley, who's a Democrat from Oregon, floated this story on MSNBC about how President Trump had diverted money from FEMA's Hurricane Relief Fund and given it to Immigration and Customs Enforcement to build detention camps. Well, FEMA and Trump immediately denied that this had happened, but the media was out there saying, oh, gosh darn that President Trump, those people in the Carolinas, they're going to suffer because, Trump is, building detention camps for those poor illegal immigrants who should just be allowed to leave here. Well, it turned on out, Senator Jeff Merkley has now admitted he made the story up. It was a complete lie and a fabrication. It never happened. Meanwhile, speculation is still ongoing over who wrote this anonymous New York Times op-ed about the resistance movement. Some people are saying it's a woman. Ann Coulter has a different opinion. She suspects Jared Kushner wrote the memo. And she may have gotten it right on this time, because Kushner and Trump seem to be in a period of extreme friction over certain topics here. Now, there was a story that came on out, this was in the New York Post, about how the State Department spent over $52,000 for Nikki Haley on curtains for Nikki Haley's luxury apartment across from the United Nations on the east side of Manhattan. And basically, this apartment is for the UN ambassador. It's 6,000 square feet, full floor penthouse atop an apartment building on First Avenue. This came out of the New York Times here. And they're out there trying to imply, oh, this wasteful spending, from the Trump administration, for Nikki Haley. But buried within the article is the admission that actually the plan to buy the curtains was made during the Obama administration for a previous UN ambassador. And the curtains cost $29,000. I mean, you could buy a car for that. And the motors and hardware used to automatically open and close them cost $22,000. So the liars have really good plush lives in the United States of America, and people who tell the truth, well, they're just getting by on pennies here. But there is a lot of wasteful spending going on here. Apparently, the United States government spent a record $433 billion in just 1 month. And that's almost $500 billion. The deficit is exploding, which means the debt is exploding. And they're looking at the tax revenues coming on in. In August, the U.S. collected only $219 billion in tax receipts, $106 billion in individual income tax, $93 billion in Social Security and payroll tax, a negative $3 billion in corporate tax, which is a result of the tax plan, the GOP tax plan. They're spending way, way beyond their means, and it's not going to get any better because they're having to spend on the wars. And there's obviously going to be a cost cleaning up from Hurricane Florence here. Speaking of Hurricane Florence, it may be wrecking more than just the Carolinas, because catastrophe bondholders are in a panic. Their insurers' models fail to predict Hurricane Florence. Now, basically, there's a special part of insurance called catastrophe bonds, which are used to spread the risk among a number of companies. And the bonds, which sort of became popular after Hurricane Andrew allow insurers and reinsurers to transfer risk to a pool of investors. And the investors receive a premium if insurers go a set amount of time without paying out a major claim. But if a natural disaster strikes, bondholders will lose some or all of their principals. And it looks like Florence is going to wipe them all out, because the models being used by the purveyors of these insurance products weren't expecting something on the size of Florence, which really doesn't make sense when you look at Andrew and Katrina and some of these other major storms. You know they're going to show up eventually. And if you're not taking that into account in your models, then yeah, you've made a really, really bad mistake. Over at the European Union, Jean-Claude Juncker is now issuing a call for the world to use the euro instead of the US dollar as the global trade and banking currency. So now Europe is turning against the dollar. I don't think the world will go back to a single global currency. They don't need to. It's an obsolete idea. It may have been valid at the end of World War II, but in this day and age of instantaneous global financial transaction and confirmation, you don't need a single currency. You make the payment, you get the receipt instantaneously, everybody's happy. I'm sure the world will look at the euro as one of the global trading currencies, but we're already seeing more and more countries say, we're going to use whatever currency works for us. And for most of those people, that is not the US dollar. In fact, it looks like Russia could completely dump the US dollar in 5 years or less, and they seem to be headed in that direction. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder, and their lower legs were hurting and a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, there's a very interesting article came out of Bloomberg, and it's basically reporting on how China has offered Venezuela a $5 billion loan to basically prop up Maduro. And the way Bloomberg is spinning this is a bad thing, because China is now going to have influence over Venezuela. In fact, I love this one quote here. Beijing has offered a $5 billion loan to the struggling socialist republic, and they put republic in quotes, like we're supposed to. They're implying it's a dictatorship. Maduro won his election. And then they go on to say, as Maduro prepares to travel to Beijing to grovel before the party bosses. Like the United States does anything differently? Of course, when the United States banks or the United States loans money to a foreign nation, with that comes a collar and a leash. In fact, one of the reasons so many of those South American countries hate the United States goes back to a period in history where the United States weaponized the banking system, and they encouraged banks to give all these development loans to these South American countries. Then the CIA would go on down and engage in industrial and agricultural sabotage to make sure those countries couldn't pay the loans back, to keep them permanently on that debt hook and permanently under the control of the United States. In fact, if you've ever seen the movie The Good Shepherd, this is briefly alluded to, where there is this country in South America, I forget which one, and their main export is coffee, and you see these unmarked airplanes flying overhead, just dropping these insects, which are known to basically blight the coffee plant and make it unsaleable. That kind of stuff went on a lot of times. And that's why these South American countries really don't like us. So what China is really trying to do is counter the U.S. economic war against Venezuela. And yes, it will move Venezuela and China closer together, but they've been close for a while. China buys a lot of oil from Venezuela. They pay for it with the yuan, which is another reason why the United States hates Venezuela. By golly, if you've got oil, you sell it for the dollar, or we'll give you what for? Which is what's going on in Venezuela. They're suffering from years of U.S. economic warfare to convince them to go back to the hegemonic domination of the dollar. Okay, as I mentioned yesterday, it's been 10 years since the 2008 financial meltdown, which inflicted devastating financial damage on millions of ordinary Americans. But there's a new report out by the Public Citizen that shows the Wall Street banks that caused the crash have done very well in the last 10 years. Between the Obama bailouts and the Trump tax cuts, the 5 largest U.S. banks have raked in more than $500 billion in profits since 2008. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. We're going to take a break here for station identification, and we will be right back.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth. What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And our phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. I'm looking at the forecast track for Tropical Storm Florence. Apparently, it's no longer considered a hurricane. And it's taking a sharp turn to the northeast. It's going to hit the eastern parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. And then it's going to cross over Pennsylvania, New York, up into New England. I just sent the predicted track map to my family that live in New England, so hopefully they'll hunker down. But by the time it gets there, it's probably just going to be, a storm. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. Okay, let's see. Getting on back to the economic news here. Apparently, there is news out of Europe of massive layoffs at banks all across Europe. Deutsche Bank is looking to lay off 10,000 workers. They've already laid off 1,000. And the excuse that's being given is because more and more people are doing their banking online. And that is true to an extent, although it's not as big as you might think. Claire and I, we do go to our bank's websites, but only to check balances and whether checks have cleared. We do not use those websites to do any kind of transfers or payments, because that would make us vulnerable to hackers, which has become a big problem for the online banking. But the real story seems to be that these banks in Europe are mired in debt. They have got huge amounts of debt they've built up, and they're having to cut staff to try and pay that debt. But again, it's all a gigantic pyramid scheme. Because no matter what you do, as long as you have a private central bank running the economy of your country, the debt grows faster than the available money supply until the debt crushes the entire system. And it looks like that's getting ready to happen in a lot of countries here. Russia and Germany have reaffirmed their support for the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, and basically saying that this will strengthen the energy security of the European continent. Which, yes, it will. And you may wonder, what's all the fuss over the pipelines? I mean, obviously, there are safety and health considerations from the pipeline itself. They do cut a huge swath across the countryside. But the real issue is that the pipelines generate revenue. They don't carry that oil and gas for free. So they're a major source of revenue that the pipeline's investors will then share in. But more importantly, from a strategic point of view, it does say who's got the oil, who needs it, how does it get to them. And remember, this was a big issue when Ukraine was heating on up, because Russia was sending oil and gas to Europe through a pipeline that went through Ukraine, and Ukraine was just dipping in and helping themselves and not paying for it. But Russia really could not turn off the valve on their end without seriously impacting Europe. So with the Nord Stream 2 bypassing Ukraine, this gives Russia more options here. Turkey has now raised their interest rates to 24% in a bid to boost the lira. This is basically a 6.25 percentage point rise. And the lira is down 38% against the dollar this year, despite yesterday's slim gain. I think they've made economics too complicated. One of the big problems, of course, are all these computer systems that are now making all these financial decisions. And like my concern with computerized weapon systems, computerized financial systems can do something really bad before anybody knows it's happened. And there have already been a few incidents. When they first started high-speed trading back in the 80s, and it got out of control and almost caused a major stock market crash. Up in Chicago, bad news for retirees. Chicago pensions are going to be cut. The pension fund is completely underfunded. It's impossible to ever pay it back. And so all those people who worked and paid into the pension plan their entire working life, they're about to get stiffed. They're about to get stiffed. Plenty of money for refugees and illegal immigrants, but for our retirees, no, we're sorry. We just ran out of money. We lost it all in 2008, couldn't get it back, and it's gone. The U.S. has thrown more sanctions on North Korea tech firms that are located in China and Russia, and these are both information technology companies. They're controlled by North Korea, and basically the Treasury Department is saying these two companies, which are controlled by North Korea, are trying to evade U.S. sanctions by being in China and Russia. Well, they were in China and Russia before the sanctions even hit. So what the Treasury Department is saying, what Mnuchin is saying, is these actions are intended to stop the flow of revenue to North Korea from overseas information technology workers disguising their true identities and hiding behind front companies, aliases, and third-party nationals. Sanctions here, sanctions there. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Trump is about to hit China with even more tariffs, about $200 billion worth. And basically this has come on out despite attempts by the Treasury to restart talks with Beijing. Maybe this is the implied threat, but China's not going to respond well to this kind of bludgeoning. The more the United States sanctions and tariffs the rest of the world, the more the rest of the world is going to decide that they can live without the United States. We're not the essential nation anymore. We don't have anything that the rest of the world needs that they can't provide for themselves. That's literally where we are right now. Because of all this trade war nonsense, global shipping rates have collapsed. And that's another aspect about all these trade wars. It impacts a lot of ancillary businesses. Trucking companies, shipping companies, air freight companies, they're all seeing a major decline in business. They could be driven out of business. And the reality is that the Trump administration is being just as dishonest about the economic indicators as all of their predecessors. They don't want you to get upset. They don't want you to panic. They don't want you to close your savings account or empty your stock portfolio and go into silver and gold. They're just trying to preserve the status quo. And there's a political dimension as well. If Trump got up there and said, look, the reality is the economy is in serious, serious trouble, the Democrats would say, oh, look, Trump wrecked it. The economy was wonderful under Obama, and Trump has wrecked it. So once again, we're being mushroomed, kept in the dark, and fed a diet of poo. Getting onto immigration and refugees, Tucker Carlson, I'm really starting to like this guy. I'm really paying a lot more attention to him. And one of the mantras of the open borders people is our diversity is our greatest strength. And so Tucker Carlson on his show, he played clips of Democratic politicians just saying that over and over again, our diversity is our greatest strength. And Tucker Carlson asked, how precisely is diversity our strength? Since that's your new national motto, please be specific. And of course, the immediate reaction from the Open Borders people was to declare Tucker Carlson a racist for even raising the issue. And basically, they're handling it saying, we don't need to demonstrate it. It's not a truth. It's a creed, not subject to debate. But the question is a valid one. Where is the scientific, historic, or empirical evidence that the greater the racial, ethnic, culture, and religious diversity of a nation, the stronger it becomes? Because from recent decades, the reverse seems to be true. The more diverse a nation, the greater the danger of its disintegration. And we can even go back further than that to the final days of Rome, when they began to integrate populations from the captured provinces. And it led to discord in the streets and social chaos and contributed to the downfall of ancient Rome. Angela Merkel was in a debate at the Bundestag, still pushing the open borders. She was debating the head of the Alternative of Germany party, Alexander Gauland. And Gauland accused her of dividing Germany with her immigration policy, endangering peace, and spreading fake news by supporting controversial evidence that far-right protesters were hounding foreigners through the street. That was Merkel's big talking point. Oh, you know, these anti-refugee Germans, they're hounding these refugees. They're harassing these poor refugees through the street. And Merkel got heckled and basically got to the edge of losing her temper because Gauland kept coming back to all the people, the German people, who've been murdered by the refugees, all the rapes that have gone on, all the crime, and Merkel doesn't really have a response to that. And as it turns out, that claim of the anti-immigrant protesters hunting immigrants is simply not true. It didn't happen. Again, it's just another lie. It's like that really old joke. How do you know when a politician is lying? Their lips are moving. It really is true. That's what they do all the time. If a politician ever caught themselves telling the truth, they'd have to tell a lie real quick just to stay in practice. I think they avoid telling the truth out of fear that ordinary people might learn to tell the difference. Sometimes they lie about dumb things. I remember when Clinton was president and he was telling everybody that Hillary had gotten him on a healthy diet and he no longer went to McDonald's. And then he came out here to Hawaii, and the first thing that happened, somebody got a picture of Bill Clinton walking out of a McDonald's. You know, big deal you had a Big Mac. Why are you lying about that? Well, because that's the first instinct of a politician. To just lie, to say what you think the people want to hear, to keep them manipulated, to keep them in the dark. Over in Italy, Salvini has come out with a very blunt statement. Africa does not belong in Italy. We send them all back to where they come from. And I think that is a sentiment that is spreading to other parts of Europe. And again, there was that wonderful quote from a few weeks ago. If we import the third world, we get third world problems. And that is proving to be true all across Europe and here in the United States of America. Down in Hungary, Viktor Orban is responding to the European Union sanctions vote under Article 7, saying, really, this is just petty revenge for proving that migration can be stopped. And saying there's no need for migration. Hungary didn't need the migration, and they put a stop to it. And as one of our callers in yesterday suggested, this might also be payback for Hungary's having shut down the Rothschild Central Bank in their country. Now, the European Union's top economic official, Pierre Moscovici, has voiced fears that little Mussolinis are emerging in Europe. basically, we've reached the stage right now where anybody who doesn't go along with the left, doesn't go along with globalism and open borders, is automatically declared a Hitler or a Mussolini, which is not really an argument. It's just a smear job to try and get people to shut up. Oh, you're being Mussolini. All right, I'll go away. I won't say anything. Or you're a Hitler. Oh, okay, yeah. It's not an argument. It's winning through intimidation. Over in Belgium, there are 4 Belgian political parties that call for the banning of this pro-Sharia Islamist party. And there's this party that is formed. These refugees into Belgium formed their own political party, the Partis Islam, and they're out there campaigning on a platform to basically turn Belgium into a 100% Islamic state. And I can imagine that the Belgian people are not happy with that idea, looking at how life is in Islamic states over in the Middle East. They're being invaded from within. I was trading emails with somebody earlier today about how so many of these refugees into the United States and into Europe especially are young men of military age. And all it would take would be for Israel to destroy the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and remember, they've been waving that red heifer around the last few days. That would trigger mass civil unrest in Europe, all across Europe. You'd have the Muslims going on jihad against the indigenous population. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Al in Canada, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I was just listening to you talk about immigration. And you know how some other countries, the European Union are being treated, like Hungary, for not wanting people from other countries and other cultures. The whole point of having a world, and it's huge, is so that people that have the same backgrounds or the same, culture, that's what it is. They want to stay together, the same language. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a great thing because when people want to travel to experience these sorts of things, they go to different countries. I mean, how do these open border people justify just smearing us all together and then we're all the same? The whole world's the same. What a boring place to live.
It will be a boring place to live. I mean, it'll be the end of tourism. Why go visit another country if you're going to go in there and see exactly the same thing you've got outside your front door? All kinds of the same people and a McDonald's and a Starbucks. But the issue here is, some immigration is fine, but it's got to be controlled. The issue here isn't that we're having all these immigrants and refugees pour into these countries. It's that there's no filtering, and we're getting a lot of bad apples along with the good. And this idea that there shouldn't be any borders, it's liberal snowflake thinking. We need borders to protect our culture, our economy, our industry, our health. And if somebody wants to come to the United States through the legal immigration process, then I say, welcome. I hope we don't disappoint you when you finally get through here. But this whole idea of shoving entire populations of one country into another country, look how destructive it's been and how dangerous it potentially is.
Mike, Keynesian economics has been around for over 40 years now. Look how destructive it's been. It's all part and parcel to the liberal mentality of, kind of anything goes. You mentioned having borders means that you protect the citizens, you protect your borders, you protect your country, your economy. Well, free trade is supposed to be about free trade, not about protectionism. But the simple fact is, free trade is about protectionism. In the United States, a lot of things are protected through tax incentives. They give out these tax rebates and whatnot. In Canada, while we have supply management, and you've heard of the dairy, poultry is the same thing, supply management, right?
Yep.
I remember when this was going through like almost 30 years ago with Brian Mulrooney and Reagan, and you know, all of these people that had these protections, like the farmers, because I was with one, they were really upset about this. I mean, they were fuming that we were going to have free trade. They figured it would be the collapse of everything, you know, and the United States would just come in and just buy everything up. Well, it kind of happened a little, but more realistically what happened was a lot of industry left and went down to Mexico, just like Ross Perot.
You know, the more the governments tinker with the economy, the more things get worse. Anyway, Al, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we're going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And as you know, yesterday they were running a story where it has been revealed or announced that Russia and Vladimir Putin were behind these strange attacks on diplomats both in Cuba and in China using microwave radiation. And basically, NBC was citing the usual anonymous U.S. officials saying, we're pretty sure Russia's behind it. You know, we don't have any proof, but who else would be doing it? And there is a professor, Kenneth R. Foster. He's a professor of bioengineering. And in an interview with Russia Today said, this is all science fiction. Now, this guy's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He studies microwave phenomenon. He has since he worked at the Naval Medical Research Center in Bethesda. And he told Russia Today, the evidence that these purported injuries were caused by some kind of microwave weapon, as alleged by NBC and the rest of the corporate media, it's science fiction. More lies, more demonization. Putin is bad. They're just coming up with anything they can think of. You know. Putin refuses to recycle. You know, Putin makes dangerous vaccines. Putin is stealing socks out of your dryer. Putin passes wind in the elevator. There's a cause for war. Over at the White House, the Trump administration is reversing a long-standing policy regarding protests and demonstrations. And they now plan to tax protests around the White House, and they're going to close that front White House sidewalk to all protests. And so now there's a federal pay-to-protest plan. It's being justified because of the cost of the cleanup after the protests and the harm to the turf, meaning the grass, which, by the way, does tend to regrow itself if you leave it alone. The other day we were talking about this story where this police officer in Dallas walked into what she thought was her apartment, saw a man standing there, opened fire on him and killed him. And now there's a new development coming out where apparently evidence has shown, in fact, there was somebody has actually issued an affidavit saying that police investigators, rather than investigating how this all came down, were looking for evidence to smear and discredit the victim to make him seem less sympathetic. Oh, he was a bad guy anyway. And yes, he shouldn't have been shot, but really, you shouldn't feel sorry for him. And the family of the man who was shot and killed has an attorney. They're getting ready for a major lawsuit. And so that's how the police react. You know, oh, we accidentally shot the wrong person here. Let's figure out a way to make him look bad so we can still look good. Up in New York, 7 New York police officers have been arrested for running a gambling and prostitution ring that involved something like 8 different brothels and gambling that was running out of beauty shops. Apparently, it was a major, major operation. And I think 40 people all told, roughly 40 people were arrested, but it did include 7 New York police officers. Okay. Down in Fleming Island, Florida at the Walmart, there was this woman carrying a lot of shopping. And apparently, this 14-year-old boy walks up to her and demands sex. First of all, asks how old she is. Total stranger. She's never seen him before. And comes up and says, I want sex and I have a knife. Fortunately, there was a gentleman standing nearby who was carrying concealed and chased the kid away, who was later caught by police and arrested and thrown in jail. But that's a little bizarre. A 14-year-old just walking up to a woman and saying, I want to have sex with you. I have a knife. I wonder if the kid was on antidepressants, because that is just too bizarre to believe. Okay, let's talk a little bit about computers and software. And apparently in the latest Windows 10 test build, Microsoft is trying to discourage alternate browsers. If you go and try and install Chrome or Firefox or Opera, there'll be a window that pops up saying that you already have the best, safest, fastest browser on Windows 10, and that is Microsoft Edge. And this has really annoyed a lot of people, especially because benchmarks are showing that, in point of fact, Chrome outperforms Edge on Windows 10. So people are very unhappy with that. And it's just more of this marketing and more of Microsoft trying to be a universe unto itself. Okay, we're coming up here on another commercial break, and we'll be right back with more news and commentary after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And I'm going to skip on back here to the domestic politics for a bit. There's a story that was just sent to me by one of our readers, and it originates with Jim Stone. And apparently somebody took the text of that anonymous op-ed in the New York Times, and they ran it through a site that checks college papers for plagiarism, and they found a match. And apparently the original version of this document was written by a student at the University of Southern California. So this whole thing was a complete and total fake. It was a psych op to get Trump to doubt his own staff, to sow discord among the White House staffers. And I had my doubts about that right from the beginning. Not because I believe the White House staff likes Trump. I don't think they do. But you would think there'd be a certain professional decorum being in the White House. Okay, getting on back to the world of computers here. As you know, the European Union just voted through this very draconian set of restrictions on the internet in the name of protecting copyright holders, which included basically people who make memes. Well, they'll take an image, they'll add a caption, they republish it. That's a copyright violation for which you can be punished if you're in the EU. It's very restrictive. It completely abandons the idea of fair use. But apparently there is a legal affairs committee of the European Parliament is saying that Article 13 would violate internet users' fundamental rights. And they're saying it may have to be reworded and clarified and made less vague. Now, the original purpose of copyright was that if you created a piece of art or a book or a record, you and only you could make money off of it. And other people were not allowed to copy it and sell it to make money. That's what the copyright was all about. Now, in the age of the internet, unfortunately, things got a little out of control, and people were copying off images, and especially music, and they were putting them on the internet, and that was a bad thing to do. No question about that. And that really should be regulated and looked after. But this idea of extending copyright protection to people who use excerpts from copyrighted work, that does violate what here in the United States we call the fair use doctrine, and I'm glad the EU is taking a second look at this. Interestingly enough, though, the guy in charge of pushing this draconian EU copyright directive apparently has his own scandal regarding the use of copyright protected images. And apparently Voss has used copyrighted material on his social media accounts and does not appear to have paid for it. Getting on back to our corporate social media platforms here, Natural News is out there saying that the executives over at Google need to be arrested and prosecuted for racketeering and fraud. And basically, this is in response to Breitbart's release of this video that captured Google executives in a panic after the Trump election victory. And watching this video, it is very clear they were biased toward Hillary Clinton. They're having this total wig out and meltdown. And then they go on to say how they're going to protect the left and they're going to get the conservatives and just protect that whole liberal dream. And they were insulting the Trump voters. Remember when they were calling us the deplorables? And they're literally on this video plotting ways to use Google to thwart the Trump agenda. Now, this is a very serious matter. Now, Google has responded to the leaked video, saying that Google, everyone at Google has been able to freely express their opinions at those meetings. That's basically it. And they go on to say, nothing was said at that meeting or any other meeting to suggest that any political bias ever influences the way we build or operate our products. There are counterexamples. searching Google Images for the word idiot still displays pictures of Trump and his sons, while a leaked company email read by Tucker Carlson reveals that the company helped create ads and donated funds to a partisan Latino group which physically bussed voters to vote for Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election. It's unknown whether these Latinos were legal citizens or not. And Google also accidentally left Trump off of search for presidential candidates in July 2016 after he won the GOP primary. Google claimed it was a technical bug. And another example of viral video created by SourceFed, which Google has now removed from YouTube, depicts several autocomplete search results for Hillary Clinton, which the company claims prove Google has been actively altering search recommendations in favor of Hillary Clinton's campaign. I noticed that myself in 2016 when I was going back to try and find articles about, Hillary Clinton and Cattlegate or Travelgate or all of those other things. You had to go down through pages and pages of "Hail Hillary, Hillary the Empress, she's wonderful, she's great, we love her," before you finally got down to the meat of that. So Google was accused of hiding negative articles on Hillary Clinton. Of course, they denied it, but it was out there on video. Apparently, there was another leaked email from Google's then executive chairman, Eric Schmidt. It was found in the WikiLeaks Podesta emails. It was titled "Notes for a 2016 Democratic Campaign," in which Eric Schmidt is communicating with Cheryl Mills, saying, "I've put together my thoughts on the campaign ideas and I've scheduled some meetings in the next few weeks for veterans of the campaign to tell me how to make these ideas better. This is simply a draft, but do let me know if this is a helpful process for you all." And another email from February of 2015 suggested that the Google chairman remained active in his collaboration with the Clinton campaign. John Podesta wrote that Eric Schmidt met with Hillary Rodham Clinton about the business he proposes to do with the campaign. Apparently, at one point, they donated the Google plane for a trip to Africa. According to a Breitbart report by Alam Bukhari, by inserting negative search suggestions under the name of a candidate, search engines like Google can shift the opinions of undecided voters by up to 43%. There does need to be an investigation. And they should be broken up. There used to be laws in this country limiting the size of media in order to preserve a diversity of opinion. We don't have that anymore. We have a liberal corporate media that is under the control of just a handful of people, and now we have our social media platforms, very liberal, under the control of a handful of people. That's not the way it's supposed to work. You don't get democracy that way. You don't get freedom of information that way. You get nothing but nonstop, wall-to-wall, screen-to-screen propaganda. Twitter is now rejecting ads with the phrase "illegal alien," saying that the term is hateful content. Apparently, they're also blocking tweets that have the phrase "illegal alien." Now, here's where it gets interesting. Alex Jones was banned by Twitter for mean words, and yet Antifa groups are still all over Twitter. They're not being banned, they're not being silenced, and these are groups that are out there calling for violence against conservatives and the assassination of President Donald Trump. But that's considered acceptable content by Twitter. Now, this comes under the heading of hoisting with your own petard. There's a liberal news site, Think Progress, that was fully on board with this idea of social media censorship. They thought it was a really, really good idea until it hit them. Because apparently they wrote an article about Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. It was declared as false by Facebook. And the Think Progress article made the claim that Brett Kavanaugh said he would kill Roe v. Wade last week, and almost nobody noticed. Well, in point of fact, Kavanaugh didn't actually say that. So they got caught up in their own petard, as it were. Okay. Oh, we have a caller on the line. Layla from Ontario. Aloha, Layla. Long time no hear from. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, aloha, Mike. Actually, there are a couple of things, if I may discuss two subjects. One is the use of liberals in describing what are actually anarchists. When you try to break down a social structure and within a civil society, that's basically a form of anarchy. And I think it's time we start calling them anarchists and not liberals, as well as possibly even reverting to a feudal form of life where they're the rulers and we're the recipients or the subservients, whether or not we like the conditions. We have no say in the lives that we now lead. The other subject I'd like to bring up with you is you always refer to Great Britain. Great is no longer used even in colonies such as Canada that still belong to Britain. I mean, it was great only because of its imperialistic, bloody colonialism of the rest of the world. That's why it was great in the sense of its geographic and military power. It advanced certain ideals that were moral and altruistic. But it really bothers me when I hear England referred to as great, because even what they did to the native British, which they ended up hiding in Wales, was itself objectionable. The Welsh are apparently the original inhabitants of Britain, and then the Saxons and the Angles came over, and then the Norsemen. So every time I hear Great Britain, I cringe. But,
well, I've been called on that by other people, and I've even gotten emails saying you should call it the United Kingdom, because obviously Ireland and Scotland are also caught up in all of this Brexit tension here.
Yes.
As far as
in terms of, and forgive me for just interjecting this, the concept of it being a United Kingdom, the only way they became united was, I don't know if people realize that many of the Irish were sent off to be slaves in the Caribbean and to force them to interbreed with the black African slaves. They were, if you just check, I don't know if it's still on the internet, if you can still find it. As for Scotland, remember the Scotland clearances. They emptied Scotland of the true Scots. The few that remained ended up being basically collaborators with the English, those who now became a somewhat homogeneous identity of English people. So even the United Kingdom is only united because they imposed their own people by population transfer. They also used to kidnap children and send them off to Australia. Not only was Australia a penal colony, but they actually kidnapped kids from mothers. I mean, this was a story that I remember reading about probably about 10, 15 years ago. It obviously did not get a lot of widespread coverage, but mothers were still lamenting the fact that their children had been taken from them. And again, I know I'm straying once again, but it's basically the same topic. Just like the Jews of Yemen, their children were kidnapped and given to Ashkenazim to raise so that they could have a more homogeneous Israeli population. So population transfer, the kidnapping of people, children from their actual families and changing their identities when they were too young to realize it. I mean, there was a time when you could find this on the internet. I doubt that anybody doing a search would find it today. However, on Netflix, I was astounded. Yesterday, I watched a wonderful documentary on Afghanistan. Even if you only watch part one, it's really worthwhile watching. The shadow of tournaments is what Russia called it, and the British called it the Great Game. Yes. It was the subject of Rudyard Kipling. It's a wonderful documentary. And one other final thought. If anybody wants to promote the concept of a civil war, please watch The Road to Calvary. I read that book. I read only the first part of the trilogy many, many, many years ago and had forgotten. But the movie on Netflix does a wonderful presentation of what happens when society is turned upside down. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for allowing me to put out a number of ideas, but This is just food for thought for people.
Okay,
And
well,
hopefully
I'll try and avoid the appellation great when I talk about Britain, or maybe I'll just call it England from now on and not offend anybody that way. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
I mean,
Okay, it's Britain. Now, final
fine.
thought. We're almost to a commercial break here. The problem with calling the liberals anarchists is anarchists are people who think there shouldn't be any government at all. The liberals want a government that they are in charge of to impose on the rest of us. And so I reject the idea that I should call them anything other than liberals, although I sometimes refer to them as the snowflakes. They've got some really wacky ideas, but they've gone so far left, I think they've discredited themselves, and we're starting to see a pushback on that issue.
Yeah, maybe anarchists for some of them is appropriate. However, what they want is a ruling elite, and a very small ruling elite. Maybe
That's why
there's a
they're not
better name for
anarchists.
them.
That's why they're not anarchists.
Yeah, but well, those that are seeking to overturn the society we now have in order to bring us backward into a time where there was a ruling elite and then a totally subjugated mass underneath them, there has to be an intermediary process. And the intermediary process is a form of anarchism. It's not as bad as it is under true anarchy, but in any country, through any historical period where you're making a transition from one type of social system to another one, a ruling system, you always have a period of chaos. And
Yeah,
during that
but
period
if the
of chaos,
end objective is a new ruling class, then they are not by default anarchists. Anyway, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. By Amazon customer. It works for me. Returned to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think the supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354. Or visit MIG911.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment getting
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And an alert listener just sent me a link to an article on the Irish slave trade, which I've posted to whatreallyhappened.com. And apparently, the European Court of Human Rights today ruled that Great Britain's mass interception programs, surveillance on the British subjects, breached the Article 8 right to privacy enshrined in the European Convention on Human Rights. So GCHQ and the NSA have issued statements saying that they absolutely promise that they will pretend they've stopped doing this. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. Frank in London, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I just wondering, what the hell has happened to left-wing politics now? Growing up in Britain in the 70s, we had people like, you might have heard of Tony Benn and people like that.
Yes.
Who were on the left, and they never had these type of extreme, really idiotic ideologies. And I think this guy will be turning his grave if he sees what happened to this type of politics, where there is no intellectual discussion as far as I'm concerned. There's just shouting. Who has the loudest voice, shouting and harassment? And I see it because I work for local government. And, you know, a lot of them, I must admit, a lot of white people want to be cool. So they wouldn't say, they try not to say anything that may be deemed offensive, because you got people who in the council, goodness alone knows what they do, but they listen to, basically to hear, if you listen out to find out, or listen to you to just to pick on something you might say politically, that might be politically incorrect. This is the kind of stupidity that we've got going on, you know?
Yes.
It really is. You've got to be careful. You've got to be very careful now.
Well, see, what we're seeing is the evolution of a movement. And liberalism, in its very early days, it did comprise intellectuals who did address some real issues in society. But they've run out of issues to work on that attract mainstream Americans. And so they've been pushing out further left and further left and further left. And because of the association of early liberalism with intellectualism, a lot of people who wanted to just imagine that they were intellectuals would say, I'm a liberal, hence I'm an intellectual, and I'm smarter than you are. But in a lot of cases, they aren't really. It's like this whole thing with the gender nonsense. You know, imagining that you're more intelligent doesn't make you more intelligent. Imagining that you're the opposite gender doesn't make you the opposite gender. Imagining you're a tree doesn't make you a tree. Imagining that I'm rich has not made me rich, I'm afraid. And they've attracted a more extreme segment of the population. And you're right, it's down to shouting and who can shout the loudest. Anyway, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with the lovely Lady Claire after these few words.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination of garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite is designed to strengthen the heart and arteries and help the body heal itself. Doctors are not able to explain the improvements they are seeing in their patients' health who are taking Extendivite. People who once needed more pills are now taking less and getting better. Due to the unexplainable improvements in their patients' health, more doctors are calling to order Extendivite for themselves. Help Extendivite make your doctor a believer. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And for those of you watching on YouTube, this gorgeous creature sitting next to me is the lovely Lady Claire, who comes in on our 3rd hour every Friday with her unique perspective on the world. So take it away, Claire.
Well, dear, I have to confess that I am very annoyed about a lot of things that are going on.
I didn't do it.
I know you didn't,
Oh,
sweetheart.
okay.
We've been with each other 24/7, so I know you didn't.
I thought
do
I
it.
was in trouble again.
No. You're never in trouble, only jokingly. Yesterday, the Spanish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Josep Borrell, said that his country will go ahead with the implementation of a deal to deliver 400 laser-guided bombs to Saudi Arabia. And he told the local radio station the ultimate decision is to hand over these bombs to fulfill a contract which dates back to 2015. And for those of you who can remember, 2015 was the time when Saudi Arabia started war against Yemen. And he's saying, and I would guess with a straight face, we have not found any violation that justifies the non-implementation of the contract, so we're going to just go ahead with it.
Yeah, this is a complete reversal of a statement they made earlier in the week, where there had been human rights groups in Spain that were very upset because obviously what Saudi Arabia is doing in Yemen is a humanitarian disaster. It's war crimes. It's crimes against humanity. But I guess money is money, and Spain just decided, well, so what if Saudi Arabia's bombed all these Yemenite civilians? It's not like we personally know any of them. So we'll just go ahead and send them these laser-guided bombs.
Yeah, and so for the Spanish government, the use of these bombs against innocent civilians, including infants, women, children, and the medically fragile elderly, is just fine.
Along with non-military infrastructure such as hospitals, food processing plants, and warehouses and all the rest of that.
Right, and it would appear to me that the weapons manufacturers in Spain are having their wargasm.
Yes, I like that phrase too.
And speaking of wargasm, Raytheon, who is a major U.S. defense contractor, has been aiding and abetting war crimes in Yemen in terms of creating the world's most lousy, horrible humanitarian crisis and profiting upon the bodies of Yemeni children torn apart by their bombs. And the public doesn't really know, Mike, a lot about this, but billions of dollars have been made by American arms manufacturers as the U.S. was backing the Saudis in Yemen. And the Saudis are able deliberately to produce massive casualties using Raytheon's weapon for the purpose of starving Yemen and depriving them of medicine. And apparently, there is a statistic going out, Mike, that one Yemeni child dies every 10 minutes. And without Raytheon's success and help, the Saudis wouldn't be anywhere near as successful as they are to, in this commission of these war crimes. And as civilian death tolls rise, so do Raytheon stocks.
Oh, yes, there's money to be made in war.
Yeah. And apparently, in the 3 years the war has been active, Raytheon stocks rose by 94%, from $108.44 per share in 2015 to $210.70 per share in 2018. And I am quite certain that given the magnificent largesse weapons manufacturers give to political campaigns on both sides of the aisle, that the executive management at Raytheon is uncorking the champagne over the bodies of dead Yemeni children.
I'm sure they are, and so are the politicians they donate to. And that's going to be completely across the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
This is a golden time for them. An
Oh.
entire world going to war.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people are talking about what happened to all this money that apparently disappeared from the Pentagon.
Mhm.
And it may simply be military spending that the government doesn't want the American people aware of.
Yeah.
That we're going to be more accepting of, oh, gee, we misplaced $20 trillion, rather than that the cost of all these wars on all these countries all over the globe have really cost so much money, which future generations of Americans are expected to pay back.
Yeah, definitely. And also, speaking of Yemen, there has been a dramatic deterioration after talks collapsed. And the port city of Hodeidah is now getting bombed unrelentingly. And the fighting has resumed in that port city, where hundreds of thousands of Yemeni lives hang in the balance. And families are terrified by the bombardment, shelling, and airstrikes. And this was stated by Lisa Grande in a statement. And apparently on Thursday, the Saudi-led military coalition seized the main road into the strategic port city of Hodeidah, which means that the Houthis' control of the humanitarian aid is going to be gone very soon. It's all over.
Yeah, I'm hoping the United Nations is going to insist on getting the humanitarian aid in there, but obviously the Saudis' agenda here is to literally starve the country into submission.
Mhm.
And again, going back to what's been going on in Yemen for a while, some years back, there was a U.S. intervention where the legitimate government of Yemen was overthrown and they installed a puppet ruler. And the people of Yemen didn't like the puppet ruler, and they basically kicked him out.
Threw him out.
And so the United States, knowing that the American people would be very resistant to the U.S. having to go into Yemen yet again, basically they're using Saudi Arabia as a proxy war.
Mhm.
And the corporate media is always trying to portray this, that Saudi Arabia is at war with Yemen. It's the U.S. that's at war with Yemen to force them to accept the U.S. puppet rule. But they're using Saudi Arabia as the proxy and giving them all kinds of supplies and weapons, which means that you ultimately are paying for all those Raytheon missiles and bombs the Saudis are using
And
to
your
murder the
kids
people.
and your grandkids.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, do we have a shout out?
Well, basically, yes, I need to do a shout out to our honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network and getting on back to the show.
All right. And apparently the granaries in Hodeidah are feeding millions of people. And the UN is particularly concerned about the Red Sea Mill, which currently holds 45,000 metric tons. That's a lot of tons.
Yes.
Of food inside, enough to feed 3.5 million for a month. If the mills are damaged or disrupted, the human cost is going to be really just through the roof.
So that's going to make them a target.
Oh, well, yeah. I would imagine these granaries are going to be tactically removed by precision bombing by the Saudis. And, they just want to complete an utter genocide of Yemen, and they're doing everything they can to make that happen.
Well, I don't know that they really want a genocide, although historically there has been no love lost between the Saudis and the Yemenis.
Well, that goes back to religious
but
differences.
after Yemen is brought under,
Yeah.
foreign puppet rule, there have to be survivors left, to do the work, to do the rebuilding, to do the growing,
Mhm.
and whatever is going to be happening in terms of economic activity.
Mhm. And again, speaking of Yemen, and I didn't know this fact, one of the largest storage of U.S. bombs used to murder Yemeni are held in Italy. And this last August, one ship docked at the port of Livorno, and on 2 September, another one did. On 9 October, that will be followed by the Liberty Pride. These ships will then return to Livorno successfully on 10 November, 15 December, and 12 January. And the answer for why this is happening is very clear. They're what are called ro-ro ships, roll-on, row-off vehicle transporters, about 200 meters long with 12 decks, and one each capable of housing 6,500 cars. They're not bringing cars, however, they're bringing tanks. They are part of a U.S. fleet of 63 ships belonging to private companies who, on the part of the Pentagon, are constantly transporting weapons in a global circuit between ports in the U.S., the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and Asia. And the Mediterranean stop is Livorno because its port is connected to the U.S. base at Camp Darby. And during a recent visit to the Florence Daily, La Nazione, Colonel Eric Brady, commander of the U.S. Army garrison in Italy, emphasized the importance, the strategic importance of this place. And again, it looks like the Italian politicians, to allow this to be happening, have collectively had their consciences removed and destroyed.
Well, you know, all of these U.S. military bases, you know, usually involve either treaties or contracts where they're basically isolated from the local country.
Mm-hmm.
And Italy may feel there's not much that they can do about it. And I don't think Italy wants to go up against the United States, because the last time they did that, it didn't work out all that well.
No, it certainly didn't. Domestically here at home, this was an article I found in Blacklisted News. Police officers at a tactical disadvantage bravely tased an 87-year-old woman into submission.
Oh, good.
Now, Mike, no police department on the planet should ever have to explain why they tased a woman that old. It's that there is seldom any reason to deploy force against a 5'2", 87-year-old. But that's what Chatsworth Police Chief Josh Etheridge had to do after one of his officers tased the woman during a confrontation behind the local Boys and Girls Club. Now, he used the stun gun, saying she refused to comply with numerous commands to put down a kitchen knife she was using to cut dandelions. So, to all of our readers and listeners, in 21st century America, any adult child of an elderly parent who speaks no English cannot have them going out without a sign that they speak no English, their language is fill in the blank, and identify the mother tongue. Now, I would, has America come to this? I'm afraid it has.
Well, we had a couple of stories
Oh, my
that
Lord.
we had earlier in the show about how this Dallas police officer who went into the wrong apartment, shot the man there, and investigators were trying to find negative information on the victim.
Oh, and he had just a little tiny bit of marijuana, right?
Or something like that.
It
But
was marijuana.
the goal there was to make him seem less sympathetic, so people wouldn't be that upset that the police just shot and killed the innocent man.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is really out of control when you're tasing an 87-year-old woman. And again, that's something that the police departments have to realize with all of this, between the illegal immigration and all of the refugees that are pouring into this country, you cannot assume that the person that you are talking to speaks English. And you might want to take a look at their face and see if they look puzzled or confused. That should be the first sign that, hey,
Yeah. Watch the body language.
the
She wasn't gonna
communication
hurt
has
him.
broken down.
Yeah.
And you don't need to resort to a taser.
Like I said, if adult children of parents who are elderly and fragile do not speak the language, do not speak English, before they're ever allowed to go out to do anything, sign, front and back, sandwich. I do not speak English. This is my native language.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
could start a company with that.
Hey, let's.
Okay.
I'd like to go over into foreign policy now. Apparently, John Kerry held meetings with Iranian leadership and advised them to wait out the Trump presidency. I mean,
Okay,
This-
that crossed
yeah.
the line into a violation of the Logan Act.
Yeah, yeah.
We had the story about the meetings the other day, and it
Yeah.
just said they just talked about issues and stuff. And I said,
Mhm.
well, if they're just talking about it, everybody talks about politics.
Yeah.
But if he is giving advice to the Iranian government
Mhm.
and changing what their policy is, that is a violation of the Logan Act.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's 6 years in jail.
But he'll never get charged. He'll never get indicted. And apparently, Kerry is thinking about a run in 2020, just what this country really needs, another millionaire with family money and very close ties to Israel, which will mean our policy on the Middle East will continue to get outsourced.
Yes.
And taking a look at Syria and Iran, and this is from a host, Sharmini Pettis, at the Real News, Lawrence Wilkerson, a College of William and Mary professor and former chief of staff for Colin Powell. And he is warning us that the neoconservative agenda for an escalated U.S. war on Syria, followed by a war on Iran, has just gained a resurrection in President Trump's administration.
Well, that's pretty much obvious.
Oh, man, yeah. And they're looking for every excuse, any excuse, all excuses to reopen U.S. operations against Syria's President Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and always realizing that the ultimate target is Tehran.
Well, I sure, as soon as Hurricane Florence is off the media screen, I think they're going to go with the videos of the horrific chemical
Yes.
weapons attack by that evil tyrant Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah. And we had something a little bizarre happen in Iraq. The chief commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC for short, confirmed a strike on Iraq in a statement and said that Iran had conducted the September 8 missile strikes on Iranian Kurdish militants in Iraq, saying such acts convey a message to the enemies of Tehran. And if this is a message, I don't know what they're going to do when they really start going to war, Mike. I mean,
Well,
come on.
You understand the Kurdish population in that part of the world
Mhm.
has been a real problem for both Iraq and Iran.
And Turkey.
And Turkey.
Yeah.
Partly because they do engage in a lot of terrorist activity. They stay close to the border so they can hop across
Yeah.
the border.
Yeah.
And I guess Iran just got fed up with them,
Yeah.
attacking Iranian assets,
Yeah.
going over the border into Iraq and sticking their tongues out at them.
Yeah, and this has been a problem historically for the Kurdish people,
Yes.
because whatever they thought they had, which was a homeland, sort of an autonomous area of Iraq, they don't have anymore. So they have a history of what a national identity was like, but no national identity right now.
Well, they have an ethnic identity,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
they've never really had a contiguous nation of their own. They want one.
Mhm.
That's what they're trying to go for.
Mhm.
And right now, I can imagine that they're feeling a little betrayed because all of the players in the Middle East have been using the Kurds
Yeah.
as proxies this way, that way, and up and down.
I know.
And then they get dumped. I mean, at
Yeah.
one point, the U.S. was promising them that they were going to carve off a part of Syria
Yeah, I
for the
remember
Kurds
that.
to live in. That is now apparently off the table.
Yeah. I can understand that the Kurds would be more than a little skeptical of any offer the U.S. made at this point.
I
Having
think
been
anybody
betrayed.
on planet Earth is going to be skeptical of anything the U.S. government says right now.
And apparently, the Vostok 2018 drills, which are taking place in eastern Siberia, close to the border with China, involve 300,000 Russian troops, as well as joint exercises with the Chinese.
And we have a video of that on the front page of whatreallyhappened.com. It
Yeah.
is a massive exercise.
Yeah.
In fact, all you're missing is blown up buildings and dead bodies, and you could call it a full-on war. Just vast numbers of tanks, armored vehicles, missiles. It was a live fire exercise. And I think Russia and China, with this exercise, are trying to send a message to the West that in the event of war, it will be Russia and China working together.
I would like to hope someone at the White House, Pentagon, and State Department and Congress are losing more than a little sleep over that, because that would be horrendous. Mike, I don't think we could win. I really don't.
Well, my concern, of course, is that if we, the U.S. is really good at beating up on small, weak, helpless countries. If we get into a mix-up with Russia and China, it's almost not going to matter who wins or loses, because at some point, the side that feels that it's losing, it's probably going to be the U.S., will resort to the nuclear arsenal. And as I was mentioning earlier in the show, not too long ago, Paul Craig Roberts was out there saying there are people in Washington, D.C. seriously discussing the use of nuclear weapons against Russia.
Right. And another development with China. Apparently, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Xi Jinping have pledged Japan and China will deepen cooperation. And that statement was made on the sidelines of the Eastern Economic Forum. And plans are being advanced for there to be a deeper understanding, deeper cultural, deeper financial involvement, which will take Japan a little bit more out of the American sphere of influence.
That's definitely what's going to be going on there. And don't forget, at that same conference is where Putin got up and said the U.S. dollar has become too risky because of our out-of-control debt.
Yeah, definitely. Are we taking a break? Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you.
Allow me to read you some from
The next
Amazon.com.
thing I want to do.
This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations, A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If If you've got the money, well, we won't say we did.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And Claire, your next story, please.
Well, the next story is, to me, a very sad story. It's about the Myanmar government and their leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, who defended her country's decision to jail 2 Reuters journalists. And she said, no, they can appeal their sentence, and their jailing had nothing to do with freedom of expression. Oh, yeah. And she was asked how she felt about jailing journalists as a democratic leader. That's a funny one. Suu Kyi said they were not jailed because they were journalists. They were jailed because the court had decided that they broke the Official Secret Act.
Okay, now we have to be very careful here, okay, because we all value freedom of speech, but every nation does have laws saying there are certain things reporters should not touch. Okay, if a reporter in this country solicits the leaking of classified information, they can be charged and imprisoned under Title 18. Over in Great Britain, they've got what they call the D-notice situation. So it is entirely possible that these Reuters journalists did run afoul of the Official Secrets Act.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, though, what I have read indicates that the interpretation of these laws is all over the place. And they just wanted to make an example of these guys.
Yes.
The Reuters reporters. And I have to think about this lady who has been so much a prize and a darling of the liberal community. If the Nobel Prize Committee had one male attribute among them, and folks, you know what I'm talking about, they would yank Aung San Suu Kyi's Nobel Prize right out of her hand for her continuing to cover up for the treatment of the Muslim minority Rohingya in Myanmar and their genocide.
Well, we're talking about a Nobel Peace Prize, and that's a joke anyway when you look at some of the people who've been awarded that.
Oh, yeah, Kissinger.
Yeah, Kissinger, a good example.
Yeah.
I think Shimon Peres got one.
Yeah.
It's a way of trying to make some of the world's worst tyrants and genocidal maniacs look respectable.
Look human, absolutely. And it certainly was the case with this lady. And Bangladesh has gone on public notice. They cannot manage to handle the flood of Myanmarese immigrants who fled the country and demands that they be repatriated. If they get repatriated, they most likely will get killed.
They will probably get killed.
You know,
it's a mess.
Yeah, it is.
It's a mess.
And I have an interesting little bitsy here that a lot of our listeners and readers might not know. American diplomats, blood traffic, and pathogens. There is apparently a U.S. secret military program in Tbilisi, Georgia. And the U.S. Embassy to Tbilisi is transporting frozen human blood and pathogens as diplomatic cargo for a secret U.S. military program. Now, internal documents implicating the diplomats say that these pathogens are being used, and the
lab is basically, it's a biological warfare lab.
Yeah.
And apparently the U.S. is sending these pathogens and other medical materials into Tbilisi under diplomatic cover.
Yeah.
There is what is called a diplomatic pouch, and it's sort of a rule that anything in there cannot be inspected by the host government. And they're used to smuggle a lot of contraband.
Yep.
In fact, the diplomatic pouch was used to smuggle Cuban tobacco seeds out of Cuba, which were then taken to Honduras to be planted so that Honduras could sell quote-unquote Cuban cigars.
Yeah. But apparently this facility is just one of 25 in 25 countries around the world, and they are funded by the DTRA, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, for a $2.1 billion with a B price tag. And the question I have is, why are they doing these experiments covertly in places like Tbilisi if there is no intent to weaponize and use them around the world?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's because these labs are in violation of treaty limits on the development of biological weapons, and they clearly do not want the American people to know what's going on there.
Yeah.
We had a report on this very subject earlier in the show in which it is alleged that human beings are being used as test subjects in the lab in Tbilisi. Yeah, when the U.S. has got something to hide, whether it's biological weapons development or torture centers, they spread them all over the globe.
Joseph Mengele would be so proud of our government.
They
Pentagon
absolutely
right
would.
now.
So it is a very ugly situation. And again, what if somebody makes a mistake?
Yeah.
There are allegations that some of the recent epidemics that swept Africa leaked out of clandestine biological warfare laboratories.
Yeah, color me unfazed by that.
Okay, now we got to take another break here
Okay.
for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slows circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Many people write about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. My wife and I both use Extendivite and are very pleased with the results. It has helped to stabilize our blood pressure and to make both of us feel healthier. Good product and good buy. So far, so good. I've been taking Extendivite 3 times a day, only a short while now, but already I've noticed the circulation in my hands and feet improving. They tingle. I like the idea of taking something herbal rather than pills. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And Claire, what is your next story?
Well, we've got a development pertaining to Syria, which is that Turkey is amassing forces in Idlib ahead of the Damascus offensive. Turkey has sent convoys, we don't know how many, but a whole lot of troops to the province, despite its defense minister having said that a military operation would drag the enclave toward disaster. Apparently, Erdogan doesn't really care. It's reinforcing its presence in the Syria's province of Idlib, which is now the only remaining terrorist stronghold, according to a report by Haaretz. And the reinforcements come despite Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar's recent warning against a military solution.
Well, I would say that Akar is definitely on the same page with Trump and everybody else saying, don't you go in there, don't you dare go in there.
And of course, we have to remember that Turkey does share an area of common border with Syria. And in the ensuing chaos, I think Erdogan wants to nibble off a few more bits of Syria to be annexed into Turkey.
Well, definitely. I mean, he wants to hang on to that Afrin now.
Yeah. And also, regarding Turkey, the U.S. Marines have conducted major drills with rebels, read ISIS, according to one of the rebel commanders operating along the Syrian-Jordan border. Apparently, hundreds of U.S. Marines and a large number of rebels have completed several days of live-fire military exercises along the border. And they appear to be a continuation of the live-fire exercises the Marines were carrying out last week at Ta'anaf. And it's supposed to warn the Russians and warn the Syrians, even though the Russians have stated very clearly that they are planning to act against Islamic factions in the area. And Pentagon officials are describing this as a show of force, saying that they want to demonstrate the ability of U.S. forces to respond to any threat to our troops in any areas of operation. Now, the U.S. is upping the ante here because they have warned that there is now a 50-kilometer radius around Tanaf, which is now allegedly off limits to other forces, even though they have not done a whole lot to prevent Al-Qaeda from setting up there. And it doesn't look like Al-Qaeda forces were directly involved in the exercise, but they are clearly going to be the beneficiaries of whatever the U.S. government decides to do. And Mike, unfortunately, just because something is the most ham-fistedly, pig-headedly thing the U.S. government could do is absolutely no guarantee that it will not do that. And I think by doing these exercises, we are slouching toward the chances of a hot war with Russia in Syria. And I think it's escalating exponentially right now. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely ramping up here. And at this point, everybody's picked up on the fact that the same U.S. government that blamed 9/11 on Al-Qaeda is now working to protect and support them. Of course, we've known that going all the way back to the Obama administration and that smuggling operation that was smuggling weapons from Libya to Syria through the consulate at Benghazi.
Right.
And so for long-time listeners and readers, this is not really a surprise. But now everybody's noticing and they're commenting on it. We were talking about how Tulsi Gabbard is out there saying this doesn't make any sense. Why are we all of a sudden working with Al-Qaeda?
She is my candidate of choice for the Democratic Party. She is a woman, very bright, partially Samoan, and anti-war. Of course, that anti-war thing will kick her out of the primaries faster than a speeding bullet.
Probably on that one. And obviously, I don't agree with her views on the Second Amendment, but I think she's a very sharp lady.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see her be seriously considered by the Democratic National Committee. But if she's not part of that CIA drug smuggling clique, then she'll never get off the ground.
The cabal. And I am reminded with this next story about Syria of the Ron White line, you can't fix stupid. The UN has now shared locations of Idlib hospitals and schools, hoping to protect them. Does the UN not remember that when they did that in Gaza, there was a massacre of primarily women and children?
Yeah, Israel was using those coordinates to basically attack those. And the same thing is going to happen Well, I don't know if it's going to happen in Idlib from either the
Mhm.
Syrians or the Russians. They want this to look as clean as possible to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But the U.S. could very easily use this information.
Oh, yeah.
Go on in and blow up a hospital and say, oh, look what that evil Putin did this time.
Yeah, yeah. And another development, which is a little bit bizarre, but it's here nonetheless. Now NATO is threatening war against Syria and Russia for wanting to weed out the rebels in Syria. I am not making this up, folks, so help me, Hannah. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres this weekend decried a Russian-backed Syrian offensive to retake militant-held Idlib. And the article goes on to state, but the fact is the terrorist groups need to be eradicated, and NATO and the U.S. powers are backing them. And the UN Secretary General urged a redoubling of the Astana talks process initiated by Russia, Iran, and Turkey to end the conflict. And this is while, and we've reported on this before, Turkey has stepped up supplies of weapons to militants in Idlib, the northwest province under the control of extremist factions. Now, this is getting even stranger by the second. Furthermore, the US and other NATO powers, Britain and France, are threatening to launch large-scale military strikes on Syria in the event that the Assad government move ahead with a planned offensive. And Mike, this is insane.
No, it's basically broadcasting to the world that ISIS and Al-Qaeda were proxies for the Western powers.
Yep.
And they basically have lost in Syria. They're losing in Syria. And now NATO and the West, they're trying to protect their assets. They're
Yeah.
trying to get them out of there so they can drop them into yet another country and mess things up there.
Yeah, it's insane. And I can't tell you when the major assault is going to happen by Syria on the rebel forces in Idlib. But I think you're right. Once the Sturm und Drang, and don't get me wrong, this is a very terrible thing, tragic thing, which has happened to the people in North and South Carolina.
Yes.
It's tragic. It's getting all the airplay in the world. And I do hope that the talk manifests as actual concrete help for these people who've lost everything.
Yeah.
Their homes, their cars, maybe even people they love who weren't able to survive the storm.
Well, so far, they've confirmed 4 dead.
Yeah. Well, that's a miracle in and of itself. I was thinking
could have
that
been a lot
yeah,
worse. I mean, they were
yeah,
predicting it was going to be Cat 5. When
Yeah.
it made landfall, it was only a Cat 1.
Yeah.
It's already been downgraded to a tropical storm. It's
Right.
not even a hurricane anymore.
Right. And bobbing back over to the Middle East, Israel and Palestine. Jared Kushner made a very interesting remark. He has said in public, punishing Palestinians won't hurt the chances for a peace deal. And this is fresh off multiple major aid cuts to the Palestinians, efforts to get the vast majority of Palestinians stripped of refugee status, and the U.S. office of the PLO closed in D.C. And the Palestinians are making a statement, which I think is very moderate. They are considering cutting all remaining ties with the U.S.
Yeah.
And that's probably practically one of the most symbolic and significant things I think they could do right now. Do you think they should do it?
Yeah, well, it's basically all that they can do.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm having a Picard facepalm moment at warp speed right now, because how can this allegedly intelligent Nepet make such a statement with a straight face? And the only answer I can come to is that he is completely obviously biased and Israeli-centric, and he has no idea of these people's history, you know. And what has been done by the U.S. is to try to force the Palestinians to give up the right of return completely for financial inducements. He knows nothing about these people. It's not going to work.
No, it isn't. But you know, there's in one context in which his statement makes perfect sense. The statement is punishing Palestinians will not harm chances for a peace deal. Makes perfect sense if he thinks there was never a chance for a peace deal anyway.
Yeah. And in other Palestinian news, apparently Palestinian farmers are in mourning right now because they've lost grape harvests to illegal settler attacks. And apparently, grape is a very popular thing in every street in the Palestinian controlled areas. And they'll do it on apartment balconies, refugee camps, to sprawling fields and courtyards in the city. For farmers, it's a year's work of intensive labor to come up with a great grape crop. So when they cut the grapes off the vine and take their goods to market, it supports the family financially for about a year, which is nice. But this year's harvest for many farmers across occupied West Bank has been marred by violence. And there has been a documentation between the months of May and July from NGO Tu B'Tselem. More than 2,000 grapevines were cut down, directly affecting dozens of farmers and hundreds of families, amounting to material damages in the hundreds of thousands of shekels. And this sort of mean, vindictive stuff on the part of settlers is not really new because we've seen it before.
Yeah, they love to cut down those olive trees, and those olive trees take 10 years before you get a usable harvest. But again, this is how the settlers are behaving. And, you know, Jared Kushner seems to feel that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, absolutely normal. And again, from globalresearch.ca, a very excellent Canadian outlet, they're describing this bid to starve 2 million Palestinians into submission because Trump is repaying his Zionist backers, Sheldon Adelson and Benjamin Netanyahu, for his presidency. And they're without food in Gaza and the West Bank, shelter, disease and contagion are spreading, and the world is watching. And long-established vital humanitarian aid has now been canceled by Trump on the demands of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his backer, who sort of bought his own presidency, Sheldon Adelson.
Yes.
Anything that Bibi and Sheldon want, they're getting.
They're going to get.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever Bibi wants.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Bibi gets. Okay.
And
you got to be my age to get that reference.
Yes. And this is going to continue. It's an illegal and criminal operation by the White House under the open influence and funding of cohort evangelical Christians and other Zionists who bankrolled
the Trump presidency, take arrest using millions of casino dollars,
Thank you.
and who now act in concert.
And, you know, I just have to sit, and I'm so annoyed about this. And it's really nice to know President Trump has sold Americans out, and our country's foreign policy has been outsourced to the country of Israel.
Yep.
He is owned lock, stock, and barrel by his largest supporter, Sheldon Adelson, who funded his campaign and agenda in return for enforcing Tel Aviv policies on the Palestinians.
Yep.
And this is just ugly. Here's a thought, and it has to do with the search engine, excuse me, that Google is creating for China. Apparently, there was a senior Google scientist who resigned over a forfeiture of their values in China. And very respected guy, his name is Jack Polson, worked for the research department and the machine intelligence department, and he was focused on ways of improving accuracy in the company's search. In early August, he raised the concerns with his managers after The Intercept revealed that the internet giant was secretly developing a Chinese search app for Android devices. The name is Dragonfly, and it was designed to completely remove content that China's government viewed as sensitive, such as information about political dissidents, free speech, democracy, human rights, and peaceful protest. And this guy and the other guys, there were another 4 who resigned with him. They have become my new best heroes. And of course, Google, Twitter, and Facebook are doing the same thing, which I think is hysterical.
Yeah, right
People
here.
need to- right here,
Right
right
here.
now. I am very sure that anything by What Really Happened, Claire Rivero, Mike Rivero, or our brother and sister websites are getting smashed down by these algorithms to a pulp.
But if you go to duckduckgo.com and use that as a search engine,
Yep.
you'll find all kinds of stuff about us.
Yes, definitely. Most of it legal. And speaking of China, there is a very fun fact which crossed my desk this morning. Again, courtesy of Global Research. Folks, if you haven't taken a look at it, treat yourself. Now, this has to do with the island of Fiji. Now, Mike and I have been to Fiji.
Yes, it's actually multiple islands. There's
Yeah.
a big island and
Yeah.
a lot of little small
Right,
ones
right,
around
right.
there. We did Fiji by tall ship.
That was enormous fun. And it's not fighting ISIS-Daesh, but it's being used by the U.S. to send a signal to China. And apparently what it has done, the island of Fiji has become the 79th member of the coalition, Operation Inherent Resolve. You know, why in the name of heaven would Fiji do this?
They probably got a lot of money.
Yeah, probably.
They probably got a lot of money. And
Yeah.
it's not like they're located anywhere really close to the contested areas of the South China
No,
Sea.
no.
It's just the U.S. trying to say, well, we're a coalition. We're the rest of the world. We must be right. You know,
Well.
the majority opinion prevails.
Yeah. And one has to wonder, as things are heating up in the Middle East, if Fiji is actually going to volunteer its soldiers as cannon fodder, or if it's just signing up for symbolism's sake.
Well,
Mike?
I hope it's just for the symbolism's sake. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, Fiji, they have their own issues. They had a major storm go through there not too long ago,
Mhm.
and they're dealing with massive poverty and corruption.
Yeah. And if you get the chance, it's a beautiful place to go. The people are tremendously friendly. They're very kind. A lot of them do speak some English. And just a beautiful place to see if you can. Getting back onto the Middle East, Bibi Netanyahu is doing his shtick yet again by accusing Europe of appeasing Iran instead of confronting its military activity. Now, this was made in a cabinet meeting, and the feed came out on his ongoing efforts to sway world leaders to join the U.S. in upping pressure on Israel's arch foe through sanctions.
Okay,
What?
we got to take a break
Okay.
for commercials.
All right.
And we'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program on this Pauhana Friday. And Claire, you wanted to finish up the story.
Yes, about Netanyahu accusing Europe of not doing enough against Iran. And he had the hubris to make this statement, and I'm quoting him directly. The time has come for the world to unite in the fight against terrorist organizations. It is doing so to a certain extent against the Islamic State group, but not doing so against Iran. Forgive me, what has Iran done?
Iran hasn't done anything other than keep to the terms of the P5+1 deal with the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
And that's what Bibi is really upset about, because when Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal, it was just sort of assumed that the deal would collapse.
And it didn't.
And it didn't.
Nope.
And there's been a tremendous amount of pressure applied to Europe to pull out of the deal and to join the U.S. in these crippling sanctions against Iran. And they're not going along with it. And the reason is because every time the nations of Europe go along with sanctions against Iran, sanctions against Russia, sanctions against this, sanctions against that, their economy gets bludgeoned.
Yes.
And they don't have the economic resilience to do that anymore.
Right.
So Netanyahu is out there screaming, Iran are terrorists, Iran are terrorists. Look, Bibi, if you really feel that way, here's your rifle, here's your parachute, here's your day-glow orange jumpsuit. Watch your head climbing into the transport, and we'll call Tehran and tell them you are on your way to whoop their butt all by yourself. But the rest of us, we are sick and tired of all this warmongering by Israel to be fought and paid for by the United States.
Well,
we've had enough of it.
To me, I mean, this is good old, Bibi up to his old usual tricks, trying to get Europe and the U.S. to militarily confront Iran so that all the blood and money spent will be European and American rather than Israeli.
Okay, and hang on a second.
Thank you.
There you are.
Okay. And a little news from Afghanistan. I think some of you would
Oh,
find
I love this one.
Oh, your tax dollars at work. And this comes from the federal government's Department of, you cannot make this stuff up. The federal government spent $90 million, that's $90 million of your tax dollars, to find jobs for 55 Afghani women. That would make for $1.6 million of U.S. taxpayer money spent per job. And, they're talking about gender equality in the Middle East.
Yeah, this was about female empowerment, and they spent all this money over there, to say women are equal and women can get jobs, and only 55 women decided they wanted to leave the house and go get jobs.
Yeah.
And the rest said, I got a good thing here at home.
Yeah.
And, it's more political correctness. It's a huge waste of money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you're dealing with one of the most conservative Islamic patriarchal stands in the world. Attitudes shift slowly in environments and cultural environments like this.
See, liberals don't understand that. They think if they repaint the walls that your point of view will shift immediately.
No, doesn't
Goes
happen
back to that whole Margaret Mead hoax.
Yes. And this I thought was a good one. This is Hialeah. Taco Bell employee refuses to help client who doesn't speak Spanish. And this went viral and unleashed a wave of indignation on social media. And this gal was trying to place her order in English at a Taco Bell drive-through window, and the employee refused to take her order because she wasn't speaking Spanish.
Well, there's your cultural enrichment, and with that, the music is playing, and it is
Okay.
time to bring this program to an end. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he has lots and lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and at the website, share it with everybody that you know. Please talk up this censorship by Google, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Please donate. We really need it this month.
Yes.
I can't stress how serious our situation is out here.
Yeah.
And we'll be back on Monday. Have a good, safe weekend. Aloha, America.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure expecting to be served with